From the heavy metal headlines into your living room, whether you be sitting, laying, or playing with your pecker, this is CKN Reacts, and somebody has placed a microphone in front of Kerry King again. Why? Why do they do this? Okay, it's fine. I'm just overreacting for a little bit of fun, but this is an interesting topic, one that I'm kind of opinionated about, considering Kerry, in this interview that we will be speaking about. I'm going to cite the first couple of paragraphs from. Has said that Metallica and Iron Maiden are living off of past successes, and that Slayer is not. It's essentially the whole one side and the other here, the Trump the Hillary or Trump the Sanders, Rubio the whatever the hell you want, a Democrat Republican side of this argument. So let's take a look at what we have here. And this was an article that was published over on Blabbermouth. However, it was not an interview done by Blabbermouth. Instead, it was a brand new interview with RVA Mag. Slayer guitarist Kerry King addressed the central crisis in hard rock and heavy metal right now, which involves nostalgia and the problem how a veteran band like Slayer grows old gracefully in an art form that is about doing absolutely nothing gracefully. King is saying that we definitely thought about not releasing new music anymore, maybe even doing what Down did and just released 4 songs before every tour, but really, until the time comes that albums are obsolete, you better believe Slayer is going to be making records. Okay, well, we'll start off there. The whole nostalgia idea that's within heavy metal is something where I think the media has a lot to do with it, and just as much as some of the bands themselves. Of course, being a legend in your field means that you're going to get a lot of attention, you're going to get a lot of press, and I think that's happening a lot these days, and these are folks that are kind of like, they're like heavy metal royalty, so until they step down maybe from making music, like whenever Black Sabbath decides to hang it up, then you're not going to hear very much about Tony Iommi or things like that, but you'll hear obviously stuff from Ozzy. Same thing with Slayer, bands of that variety, and it's one where there needs to be a little bit more endorsement of stuff that's a little bit more new. We need to, the genre needs to be promoted from the inside eternally for what is out there today, right now, what is sort of bludgeoning upward, and it seems like the real problem is not so much nostalgia as it is imbalance in reporting, because a lot of these websites, I believe, and a lot of these publications, I believe, are looking at the fact that articles such as this one, speaking with a heavy metal legend of 35 years, will get and gain a little bit more for putting bread on the table, as opposed to one that's talking about, I don't know, what Bobby Blitz Ellsworth's favorite breakfast cereal is, whatever. And the whole Down idea, I thought that whole thing was based around releasing an album 4 songs at a time, like a quarter at a time, and it still hasn't happened. So is that a good idea? I don't think so. King did admit, however, that Slayer is to some degree resting on its laurels. We are living on our history for sure, he said, but so is everyone else. We're the ones trying to push ourselves forward. I would say Iron Maiden and Metallica, no offense, are living on past successes. Metallica has toured forever on the Black record, which a lot of people don't like. I actually like it. It's heavy as can be. Is it Master of Puppets? No, but it's a great record. Iron Maiden, for me, is living off of their first 3 records here. Have they made good songs since then? Yeah, but they've not made great records. I like to think that we're still making great records, and this is because people, for the number of people coming out and asking for Raining Blood and Angel of Death, they also want to see and hear Disciple and Implode. Wow. This is where we're going to stop. There's actually more with this article and to this article, talking about how Slayer is measured more through concerts, concert tickets sold rather than records sold, which is kind of becoming a little bit of a parallel to what heavy metal economics and really some music economics also have kind of started to mirror, because of streaming, because of downloading, because of living in the digital age as digital music fans. But to say that Slayer is a band that is still making great records, and to say that Metallica and Iron Maiden haven't made a great record since either the Black Album or Number of the Beast, is kind of comical to me. It really is, and that's sort of where the light versus dark scenario really takes place. Because Repentless, regardless to saying that it was a competent record, and which it is, but that's all it is. It's a competent record. It is not a genius record. I really feel like the ego a bit is inflated there, thanks to, some of the publications that deemed that this was the record of the year, whenever this one shouldn't have even sniffed the surface. It's really one that, as I stated, is a competent release that has a lot of good ideas kind of coming from it, but it's not something that's morphing enough to really make this a legendary release. It's not going to be one that is going to be very well remembered, unless, of course, you're a Slayer fan. But Iron Maiden, I'm even going to exclude everything post-Brave New World, post-Bruce Dickinson's return. Iron Maiden had probably, out of all of the bands that have been listed here, the 3 that were listed here, maybe not in terms of sales, but maybe so, I think they had the best 1980s out of the 3 of them, considering every single album that was released during that decade was a solid affair. Was there musical evolution that took place? There was, between the Di'Anno and the Dickinson era. Was there a little bit of a lull where the songwriting was kind of being done in the same way, but it was still an interesting concept, an interesting way for it to be done? Yeah. Is it one that's comparable to, say, what Metallica did? That one's kind of close. But then Seventh Son of the Seventh Son came out and sort of blew that concept out of the water, considering this album is just exceptionally strong, very different, and really showcases what the band could have become and could have done had they gone further with it and had exhaustion and internal combustion within the band not claimed them a couple years after that. But then you also have to look at a record that is not as appreciated, such as the X Factor, which is a dark record for Iron Maiden, a very dark record with Blaze Bayley, and one that has its own level of genius based around that darkness. Metallica, on the other hand, there are a lot of people that claim, and we just talked about this in the 5 Reasons People Hate Metallica video yesterday, that Metallica hasn't released a good thing since the Black Album. However, there was a ton of hype and a ton of love for individual songs in the Load and Reload cycle. Songs such as King Nothing, songs such as Fuel, The Unforgiven 2, just to name a few. And then, of course, really what you could say about Metallica is that they took risks. They took risks that did not pan out. Lulu was a risk with Lou Reed that didn't pan out. Saint Anger was a risk that was extremely raw, and actually is an album that's, 10 to nearly 15 years later sounds a lot better than it did whenever it was released, but it still did not pan out. Death Magnetic could even be seen as a risk, considering it was coming off of the wave of post-Saint Anger criticism, and now they seem to be doing a similar idea with sort of reverting back to that thrash idealism after Lulu's failure. So what about Slayer? Has Slayer really changed up the way they've done things all that much? Has Slayer transformed their sound? No, in fact, in reality, there's been a little bit more simplicity added in with some of these elements with albums such as God Hates Us All. It's there, it's present, and a lot of people don't want to admit it. Principally because God Hates Us All for this newer generation is a catalyst point. It's one in where a lot of folks first started to hear about Slayer based off of this record, the same way that 20 years ago, a lot of people started to hear about Slayer based around, and I'm talking 20 years from 2001, 20 years ago, a lot of people were first starting to hear about Slayer based off of early albums, such as Show No Mercy or Hell Awaits. And then, 15 years, the late 1980s, how albums such as Rain and Blood just captivated it to the top, and when it was seen as just this crazy, chaotic, it was right there in the thrash department, but it was crazy and chaotic. It was one that actually sounded like the chaos that a lot of the other thrash bands were speaking about. Almost as though Slayer was one that took the concept and tried to make the music sound the concept. And so that's why Slayer got a lot of fans attached to that. But they really pushed the envelope that much in the past 15 years. In the same length of time that we've had the post-Bruce Dickinson era of Iron Maiden, has Slayer really pushed the envelope all of that much in that same 16-year period. From Brave New World and God Hates Us All the way up to the Book of Souls and Repentless, both of which were released in 2016. And the answer to that question, I hate to say it, Slayer fans, is absolutely not. So, if Iron Maiden's living off their first 3 albums, Metallica's living off of everything before the Black Album, Slayer is living off of everything all the way up into South of Heaven and Seasons of the Abyss. They have a couple songs here and there that people want to hear, such as Implode and such as Disciple, but it's the same argument that you gave for an Iron Maiden carry or for a Metallica carry, where people want to hear these songs, but they don't really care as much about the records. Sure, with Repentless, you did have your best sales week. You had 49,000 on the threshold. You were number 4 on the billboards. You crossed over and had one of your best days internationally for the release of Repentless. That's very nice. Bravo to you. Iron Maiden did the same thing with the Book of Souls. We're really amped up. They were blocked a little bit by Five Finger Donkey Punch's bullshit Got Your Six, one of the worst damn records of 2016. But yet they still were able to make some chart traction. And whenever Metallica has their new album come out, it is going to be one that is easily going to sell in the six figures. That is not a question. That is merely fact. So, does Kerry King of Slayer have a point here that they are somewhat living in the past? Yes, he does have a point. I'm not completely disavowing Kerry King's point as irrelevant, considering I feel that Slayer is essentially doing the same thing. But that's the thing. Slayer does need to accept the fact that it does apply to them, and he does. He does. Right in the article, he does state that Slayer has been resting on their laurels a little bit. But every band feels that they have taken steps. Slayer feels that they have taken steps, though I'm sure that Iron Maiden does as well with the six-member idea and really transforming their sound in the 2000s. Were there some duds and stinkers? Hell yes, there were, but there are still great songs and great albums in there as well, including the Book of Souls, which many people consider to be either you love or you hate. Slayer, has everything been glorious? No. Have there been duds? You better believe it. But is it still something where this is just a band that is continuing to love and make music because they love making music? Yeah, that's pretty much what it boils down to. The bottom line, Kerry, that I'm saying here, the bottom line to this article is the fact that here in America, at least, heavy metal had a heyday in the 1980s. The 1980s was synonymous with thrash metal and synonymous with heavy metal, not only on this corner of the earth, but in various others as well. So of course there is going to be a nostalgia idea among the elder fans, those that are now aging a little bit, and it is also a discovery process, a gateway drug process for many newer fans, along with some of the modern metal bands of the day. So that's pleasant. To say that you're living off of your first couple of records is not a bad thing. It just means that these are the songs that have captivated. It is actually something that every artist, every musical artist, has to deal with. There was an article that was recently written in Rolling Stone magazine about Elton John. And Elton John just recently released an album here in 2016 and was doing a couple of shows and spoke about how he did a lot of the cuts off of the new record, but then recognizing the fact that people came to hear songs such as Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Benny and the Jets, and others, then dedicated the latter portion of the set to those classics. Any popular artist that has traction based off of individual tracks and individual albums will have to do this. So really, any artist is living off of something that they've done in the past that they have gained success for. Do you agree with this idea? Let me know in the comments below. And while I have you, there is a deal going on over on the Patreon page for CKN. Link is in the description box below. If we make it to $250 over there, we're going to do a 24 hours of CKN marathon at the end of April. This is traditionally something that we wait to do in the middle of summer, but this time, if we're able to reach this goal, we'll do 2 of them this year, which is an awesome thing. It's basically 24 hours of streams, new CKN content, interactivity. There might be blogs, there may be Skype calls, either that or just interaction with fans, and like I said, new material. So if we make $250 over on that Patreon page by the end of March, so we're just starting with March, still a long way to go. We're going to do a marathon in April, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be, we've done marathons like this twice before, and they have always been not only huge successes, but just great times, a lot of fun. And everybody who has been a part of it has just really spoken about how much fun it was and what a joy it was. And I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful to have you all watching. So I'm coverkillernation. Leave your thoughts about this article. Leave your thoughts about Slayer. Has Slayer, have they been living off of their first couple records this whole time? Are they just like Metallica and Iron Maiden? No, they can't be just like them. They're Slayer. They're Slayer after all. Slayer. Slayer. S-L-A-Y-E-R. Let me know.